Alright, how's everybody doing this evening? Back again with another video for you guys and gals. And tonight what I have for everyone is another versus / comparison video. This time I'm putting head to head, side by side, the Moto E4 Plus versus the Xiaomi A2 Lite. Alright? So, as I always do with my versus / comparison videos, we're going to compare and contrast some of the similarities and the differences between the two devices. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to give you guys my overall opinion and a recommendation or two. So without further ado, the first thing I want to talk about on both of these devices is the overall build quality and design between the both of these. Now, these devices in regards to the build quality and design are extremely similar with one or two key major differences. So starting off, let's jump into this. The major difference between the two being that one is a full unibody metal design versus a semi-unibody plastic design. So on your Motorola device here, you have a semi-unibody plastic design because this whole back shell is removable, alright, but it's all plastic, alright, whereas on your A2 Lite here, your Xiaomi A2 Lite, this is a fully metal unibody with the only exceptions being you have a plastic bottom and top for reception purposes. Other than that, the two bodies on these two devices are pretty much the same, alright? That being said, when we talk about the overall build quality and design between both of these devices, I have to say that both of these devices are top notch, and I didn't have any issues in regards to the build quality on either of these. So in regard to the overall build quality and design, I'm going to have to call it a tie in that department. Both of these devices have nice and clicky and tactile buttons. Both of them have a nice balanced weight to them, and they feel really solid in the hands. Alright, so the overall build quality and design between both of these is a tie. Up next now, let's talk about the displays between both of these devices. And this is where you guys and gals are going to see a very big major difference. Now starting off, on the A2 Lite here, we have a newer 19:9 aspect ratio display in the 1080p resolution, and it has a screen density of 432 pixels per inch. So when I say 19:9, you can see if I swipe here to my Google feed, that means that we do have the notch design implemented here. So hate it or love it, this bad boy does have the notch. But a neat thing about the design, the display design here, is that you actually fit more on the screen at one time, okay? So hate it or love it, there are some upsides and there are some downsides to having a 19:9 aspect ratio display. That being said, when we talk about the display on the E4 Plus, now we have a more traditional 16:9 display, but it has a lower resolution at 720p resolution. So this bad boy has a screen density of 267 pixels per inch, and the maximum you can watch things or play things back on this device is at 720p. And you also have the slightly smaller display on the E4 Plus. The E4 Plus has a 5.5 inch IPS LCD display, whereas the A2 Lite has a 5.8 inch IPS LCD display. Okay, so not only do you have a slight difference in overall screen size, but you have a difference in the overall resolution as well. That being said, putting those two things to the side, talking about these devices in overall daily usage, I have to say I haven't had any issues with either of these devices. Now outdoors, I tend to keep them anywhere from about 50% to 80%. Indoors, I tend to keep them anywhere from about, about 25 to 50%, and I haven't had any issues with either of these displays. So in regards to the display category, it comes down to personal preference, but in my opinion, I'm going to have to call it a tie between both of these displays on these devices yet again. Okay? And y'all already know what I'm about to say. If some of y'all are saying, well, how can it be a tie if there's a clear difference in resolution? I've said it before on a lot of my videos, and I'm going to continue to say it. In my opinion, a good display is a good display regardless of the resolution. As long as manufacturers give us a good panel and there's no issues, then I don't have a problem. And overall, I don't have a problem with either of these displays. That's why it's a tie in my opinion. Alright, now moving on, the next thing I want to do is dive a little bit deeper into the hardware and the software between these two devices. Now let's start off with the hardware first on both of these. Now, hardware wise, this is where you're going to see again a lot of major differences here. When we talk about the hardware on the E4 Plus, this bad boy comes in two different configurations. You have 2 gig of RAM variant with 16 gigs of onboard storage, or you have a 2 gig of RAM variant with 32 gigs of onboard storage. Whereas over here on the A2 Lite, you got 3 different storage configurations. You have your 332, you have your 432, or you have your 464. The variant you guys and gals are seeing in this video this evening is the 4 gigs of onboard storage and 64 gigs of storage variant here, okay? Now, talking about more hardware between these two guys, both of these guys support micro SD card expansion, and they both give you the ability to make your SD card expandable, adaptable storage or internal storage, okay? Both of these devices do support nano SIMs, but the A2 Lite does have the advantage because it supports dual nano SIMs and a separate dedicated micro SD card slot. Whereas with the E4 Plus, it's 1 SIM and 1 micro SD card. So, you know, there is a disadvantage there, but it is what it is. All right. Other hardware includes on the rear of these devices, the A2 Lite is packing a 12 megapixel and a 5 megapixel sensor respectively, whereas the E4 Plus is only packing a 13 megapixel primary sensor, okay? When we talk about the recording and resolutions between these two devices, your A2 Lite can record up to 4K videos or 2K videos at 30 frames per second and do 720p slow motion at 120 frames per second, and you also could do your bokeh shots as well. That's what that secondary 5 megapixel sensor is for. It's a depth sensor. Whereas the 13 megapixel primary sensor on the E4 Plus can only record at a maximum resolution of 1080p at 30 frames per second. There's no slow motion, no 4K, no none of that, okay? But both of these devices do support EIS, or electronic image stabilization, so you can get some really steady footage out of either of these, okay? That being said, talking about more hardware between these two devices here, up front, both devices have a 5 megapixel sensor, which maxes out at a recording of 1080p at 30 frames per second, okay? All right. Now, we do have another major difference with the hardware on these two devices. That being, we have a bottom firing speaker here on the A2 Lite, where we have a front firing top mounted speaker on the E4 Plus. Okay? Now, moving on, when we talk about other hardware differences, both of these devices have fingerprint sensors, which are always active and capacitive, but they are mounted in two different places. Now, it's mounted in the more traditional area on the rear on the A2 Lite, whereas it's mounted on the front on the E4 Plus. And I gotta tell you guys, in regards to the overall fingerprint sensor performance, I haven't had an issue with either of the fingerprint sensors on either of these devices. Now, that being said, I do think there's something to be had by having a front-mounted fingerprint sensor. It adds a little bit more versatility, in my opinion, but it is what it is, okay? That being said, let's dive a little bit deeper into some more of the hardware on these two devices. Now, the E4 Plus does have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery as opposed to the 4,000 milliamp hour cell on the A2 Lite. Both of these devices support micro USB charging, so there is no USB Type-C on either of these, all right? Now, the A2 Lite does have the advantage because it has the IR blaster sensor up at the top here, whereas you don't get that on the E4 Plus. Both of these devices do support your 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, as you can see right there. It's up on the top on the A2 Lite here, and I do believe it's down on the bottom on the, nope, my mistake. It's also up on the top on the E4 Plus, okay? So it's really nice to see that they both support your 3.5 millimeter headphone jacks. So if you want to use wired headphones or microphones for content creation, you can do that on either of these devices. Now moving on, let's dive in even deeper into the hardware. Internally, these two chipsets couldn't be any more different. Now, chipset wise, for your E4 Plus, we are running the Snapdragon 427 octa-core processor and the Adreno 306 GPU. So this is clearly, in my opinion, entry-level specifications when we talk about the chipsets here, and it's older entry-level specifications. Whereas on your A2 Lite, we are packing the battery beast himself, the Snapdragon 625 octa-core processor and Adreno 506 GPU. All right, so not only is there a clear difference in RAM and storage, but there's a clear difference in the overall chipset powering these devices, and boy, does it show. Okay, now I do believe that covers all the hardware between these two different devices. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into the software. And software-wise, these two devices are extremely similar, but they do differ in two major aspects. Now, your A2 Lite is running on the Android One program. So what does that mean? That if you get an A2 Lite for yourself, you are guaranteed 3 years of security patches and 2 years of major OS updates. And as of right now, this bad boy is running on the latest version of Android. As you can see right there, we're running Android 9.0 Pie with your March 5th security patch. Whereas over here on your E4 Plus, we are still running a very old and antiquated version of Android in the Android 7.1.1 Nougat, but we have a little bit new-ish security patch because we are running on the January 1st, 2019 security patch. So it is outdated, but it's a little bit up to date in regards to the security patches. And at the end of the day, when we talk about software, security is everything. So it is what it is. But that being said, the other major difference between these two devices in regards to the overall software, again, we have stock Android over here, whereas we have stock Android with Motorola's custom skin on top, which in my opinion is pretty much stock Android with a few nifty things that I believe Google needs to implement into their stock Android software. So you do have your Moto display. So if I raise the device or move the device, the display will light up. Or if I get notifications, the display will light up as well, and I can act upon those notifications. As well as you get a really fast fingerprint sensor, but along with that, you do get Moto's customizations in regards to the Moto actions. So you have your one button nav. So if I turn this on, I can navigate the whole device just using the fingerprint sensor. So tap it once to go home, swipe this way to bring up recent apps, and swipe the other way to go back. As well as they do have a shrink the screen gesture as well. Alright, so that's really nice if you have small hands. Now, I do prefer LG's implementation of the shrink the screen gesture because it's a little bit easier to do, or also Samsung's implementation of the shrink the screen gesture is also a little bit easier to do as well. But there is a big major difference between these two devices in regards to the software, and just for that, I have to give Moto the slight edge in regards to the software, at least where features are concerned. That being said, you still do get all of your stock Android features with your A2 Lite. So you got the status bar pulled down with your fingerprint sensor, you got the ambient display, all that good stuff, and you have the newer gesture controls inside of the settings. Now, I'm trying to go through this as fast as possible, but if you want a more in-depth look as to what I'm talking about, or an in-depth look or more information on either of these devices, please feel free to check out my full reviews on either of these, which I'll have linked up down below in the video description. But you do get all of your stock Android gestures and all that good stuff here. Alright, but that being said, now that we've talked about the differences in software, let's move on and talk about the overall daily performance experience in regards to the software. And this is where I have to say stock Android with 4 gigs of RAM, in my experience and in my opinions, should be the minimum for Android today, okay? Anything less than 4 gigs of RAM, in my opinion, after about 6 to 8 months, you're going to start seeing some major performance hits. And that is where the A2 Lite beats the E4 Plus hands down. In regards to the daily performance and smoothness of the OS, I have to say stock Android with 4 gigs of RAM is much more smoother and pleasurable than it is with stock Android with 2 gigs of RAM. And it's a very noticeable difference, as I'm sure you guys have already noticed throughout this video. It's a very laggy and choppy experience with the 2 gigs of RAM, whereas it's a very smooth experience over here with the 4 gigs of RAM. Now, that's made even worse with the fact that the hardware degrades over time. So it's only going to get worse as time goes on. Now, software updates and security patches aim to minimize that and mitigate that, but it's only going to get worse over time. And at least in regards to daily performance, I'm going to have to say the Moto E4 Plus gets a straight L, okay? In regards to multitasking and all that stuff you would do on a regular basis, you really can't push this device. It really does struggle, especially when you try to do things like game. Oh man, the Adreno 306, not very good for graphically intensive games. Not good at all. But it can handle it, but you just have to minimize your expectations, okay? But that being said, in regards to the overall software and performance, when we talk about daily usage, I'm going to have to give the W to the A2 Lite. So in regards to the hardware, I'm giving the W to the A2 Lite. Sure, The E4 Plus does have the advantage in overall battery capacity, but other than that, I feel like other than having the fingerprint in the right place on the E4 Plus, all the hardware advantages clearly go to the A2 Lite. Okay? That being said, I have to give the overall software experience portion of this video to the A2 Lite as well. Now, I am a big fan of Motorola software experience, but the hardware just cannot hold up to the software in this regard. So in both hardware and software, I got to give the W's to the A2 Lite. Alright, now moving on, let's talk about the Wi-Fi on both of these devices. Now, both of these devices support Wi-Fi 802.11 BGN. Now, there is a big difference because the A2 Lite supports dual band Wi-Fi, AC Wi-Fi. So that means you get support for your 2.4 gigahertz and your 5 gigahertz band Wi-Fi respectively, whereas you only get support for your 2.4 gigahertz band Wi-Fi on your E4 Plus. Okay? Now, that being said, even though the E4 Plus is at a clear disadvantage, the overall Wi-Fi experience is okay. And this is where I say the hardware degrades over time again, because I did notice a noticeable performance difference in regards to the Wi-Fi. Like when I was doing things like watching Hulu or Netflix or streaming music, I did notice that it tended to hiccup a lot more often than the newer hardware over here on the A2 Lite. So there is a big performance difference between these two in regards to the Wi-Fi, but it's still very usable, okay? But again, this is just my opinion. You guys might pick up these two devices and feel completely different. We're all entitled to our own opinions. That being said, let's pull up some YouTube videos and give y'all a Wi-Fi performance test in real time, okay? And this performance test will also double as a speaker test as well. So let's go ahead and max out the volumes on both of these. And let's make it do what it do, y'all. It's okay? So they both have maximum volume. And I'm going to stop talking now and let y'all enjoy this real quick audio sample. Alright, so here we go. Let's start off with the A2 Lite first. And let's push play. Scrub through the video a little bit. And let's scrub back. Now let's do the E4 Plus. Alright, let's go through the video now. Okay? Okay. So, there you guys and gals have it. Real quick Wi-Fi performance test for you guys. And real quick speaker test as well. So, what are my opinions in regards to the Wi-Fi on both of these devices? I'd say they're both pretty good. Aside from the major hiccups that I did see on the E4 Plus, overall though, it still performs well. Both of these devices perform extremely well in regards to the overall Wi-Fi performance. Alright, that being said, talking about the overall speaker performance. Now, in terms of clarity, I have to say both these devices are extremely good. But that being said, in regards to the overall volume, I have to give the edge to the A2 Lite. In my opinion, I don't know how well my microphone picked it up, but there's much more volume on the A2 Lite than there is on the E4 Plus. In terms of clarity though, they both did a really good job. Now, other than that, how do I feel about the placements of the speakers on both of these devices? Now, if y'all seen my videos before, you already know what I'm getting ready to say. I detest the placement of the speakers on the A2 Lite. I'm not a big fan of bottom firing or rear-mounted speakers on devices. I'm a big advocate for front-firing, top-mounted speakers on devices, and in my opinion, all devices need to have dual front-firing speakers, okay? It's a lot better user experience, in my opinion, at the end of the day, okay? So, in regards to the clarity, it's a tie. In regards to the volume, that goes to the A2 Lite. In regards to the placement, that goes to the E4 Plus. Now, moving on. The next thing I want to talk about with you guys and gals is the overall LTE and bands supported in both of these devices. So just let me pull it up for y'all so y'all can see what I'm working with here. And then we could talk about it. Now, I had it pulled up, but it looks like my random button presses kind of messed it up for me here on the A2 Lite. Now, if this is unclear, I'll go ahead and throw up a screenshot and post just so y'all can see what I'm getting ready to talk about here. Now, in regards to the overall bands, on paper, the E4 Plus has the more valuable bands, and on paper, it's supposed to work across all major bands in the USA and all GSM bands abroad. Keep in mind, I keep saying with big asterisks on paper, okay? Now, in actual performance, actual extended performance, it works extremely well on GSM carriers like AT&T, like T-Mobile, like Metro PCS, like Cricket, so on and so forth. Now, I did have a really big issue getting it to work on carriers like Sprint. And in regards to the Verizon performance, it works. As you can see here, I am running it on Verizon in this video. But for data, I'm only able to pull down 3G speeds in regards to the data. Talk and text works no issues. But in overall data performance, I'm only getting 3G on this device with Verizon, okay? So, although it may have more bands, and supposedly the E4 Plus is supposed to work on all the major carriers, there is a big performance difference in actual usage than on paper. So, depending on the carrier that you want to use the E4 Plus on, I really do recommend that you do your homework and take the time to test before you go ahead and pull the trigger and decide if you really want to pick up this device. That being said, in regards to the A2 Lite, this is a GSM unlocked device, so this will work without issue on carriers like T-Mobile, AT&T, Cricket, Boost, so on and so forth. Any GSM carrier, this bad boy should work on without issue. And I didn't have any issues with this device in regards to the overall data performance and LTE coverage performance. Okay, and I did run this bad boy on T-Mobile and on AT&T, so on and so forth, and it worked without issue. And as of the recording of this video, you guys and gals can see I am still running it on T-Mobile right now, and I'm getting 4G LTE speeds. Now, y'all may see the 4G indicator here, but don't worry, it is 4G LTE speeds. It just comes up as 4G on the device, okay? So, in regards to the overall LTE and band supported on these devices, I would have to call it a tie, okay? Now, on paper, technically the E4 Plus wins, but in actual usage, it's nowhere close to what it's supposed to be. So that's why I have to call it a tie, because that effectively makes both of these devices GSM-only devices, okay? And on GSM carriers, these devices work without issues, all right? So just had to point that out there. Up next now, the next thing I want to talk about is the overall Bluetooth performance on both of these devices. And this is another major difference, but it's not as major as you would think. Now, on paper, okay, the A2 Lite has Bluetooth 4.2 technology in it, whereas the E4 Plus has Bluetooth 4.1 technology in it. So on paper, the E4 Plus in regards to the Bluetooth is one generation behind. But in actual usage, both of these devices perform pretty much the same in regards to the overall Bluetooth performance. So I'm going to have to call it a tie in the overall Bluetooth aspects of both of these devices. Didn't have any issues with the Bluetooth on either of these. Okay? Next, let's talk about the overall GPS performance on both of these devices. And this is another area where I have to say both of these devices performed pretty much exactly where I was expecting them to. Didn't have too many issues with the GPS on either of these. Now, I did notice that with my testing, it was a little bit more accurate on the A2 Lite, but in regards to the actual performance, I didn't have an issue with either of these. So in terms of the GPS performance, we're going to have to call it a tie yet again. Now, let's talk about the overall call quality and speaker call quality of both of these devices. Now, in regards to the overall call quality, through the onboard receivers, I'm going to have to say it's a tie. In terms of clarity, I found using these devices side by side and taking regular receiver phone calls, I would want the clarity to be a little bit better. And the overall volume through the onboard receivers, I would want that to be a little bit louder as well. So in terms of receiver phone calls, we're going to call this one a tie. Now, in terms of the overall speaker phone calls, I'm going to have to give the advantage to the A2 Lite. Speakerphone calls on the E4 Plus with extended usage, they're kind of, clarity is there, but the volume is not. So, once again, for recap purposes, in regards to the receivers, tie. In regards to the speakerphone calls, win to the A2 Lite. Alright, now, moving on, let's talk about the cameras on both of these devices. Now, keep in mind, I've done separate dedicated camera videos on both of these devices. I'll have that linked up down below in the video description. And I'm actually in the process of redoing the camera test on the E4 Plus because I don't know if you guys and gals know, but Google Plus recently got deactivated. So all the photo samples that I had for the E4 Plus, all that stuff went away. So I'm actually working on redoing those doing that video. And I'm going to consolidate all that stuff into one big YouTube video that y'all can sit down and watch and jump through as you like. So y'all be on the lookout for that, and I'll link that up in the cards and down below in the video description when it's done. Not quite ready yet as of the recording of this video. But that being said, in regards to the overall camera performance between both of these devices with proper light are capable of taking some really good shots. Now, both of these devices, once you get into lower light situations, do struggle. But overall, I have to say, in my opinion, these are some really good cameras on either of these devices. That being said, I have to give the W to the A2 Lite. It was a little bit more consistent in my experience taking shots side by side. Got a little bit more consistent performance with the A2 Lite than on the E4 Plus. That being said though, both of these cameras were really, really good. Again, let me reiterate, we got a 12:5 megapixel setup on the rear for the A2 Lite, and we have a 13 megapixel setup for the rear on the E4 Plus, and we have 5 megapixel cameras across the board respectively on either of these. Okay? So, cameras, in regards to the photos, I'm giving the edge to the A2 Lite. In regards to the videos, I'm giving the edge to the A2 Lite. Now, I do want to point out in regards to the overall interface, okay, because that's another important aspect when you're dealing with the cameras. I'm giving the edge to the E4 Plus. I'm a big fan of Motorola's camera interface and all the camera features that they pack in. And I was really happy to see that even though the E4 Plus is an older device, they still went ahead and updated it with the new camera software. And I'm a big fan of the camera software on Motorola devices. So at least in the camera experience or interface category, I'm giving the W to the E4 Plus. Everything else, I would say the A2 Lite wins on. Okay? Now, in regards to audio while on video, I have to say both of these two are tied. It's really low audio on either of these cameras. So if you're taking videos, you can get some good video, but you may want to consider picking up a dedicated microphone. Okay? Maybe a big microphone, or maybe one of these run and gun style microphones if you want to improve the audio on your device. Okay? So photos going to the A2 Lite, overall video performance going to the A2 Lite, overall camera interface going to the E4 Plus, overall audio performance is a tie. They're both okay, but not really too good. Separate microphone is a must if you're going to continue to use these. Now, moving on, the next thing I want to talk about is the overall gaming performance. Now, I've done separate dedicated videos on both of these devices. Once again, as of the recording of this video, I'm redoing it for the E4 Plus, but I will have it linked up on the A2 Lite, and once it's done for the E4 Plus, I'll link that up in the video description and I'll throw up the cards. But in regards to the overall performance, because I have been using these side by side, when it comes to the gaming, I have to give the win to the A2 Lite. It's a more smoother and consistent experience on the A2 Lite than it is on the E4 Plus. The Adreno 506 GPU on the A2 Lite performs head and shoulders better than the Adreno 306 GPU on the E4 Plus. And in regards to the overall gaming performance, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it in the gaming video once I'm done, but I did experience a lot of hiccups, stutters, and crashes while I was trying to do my gaming performance test. Now, that was for more graphically intensive games. For lighter games on the E4 Plus, it performed well. I still had some minor hiccups, but overall, for lighter games like Subway Surfer or Fruit Ninja, it's playable. But more graphically intensive games, you're going to have some problems. So in regards to the overall gaming performance, we're giving the W to the A2 Lite. Now, moving on to the benchmark performance. Now this is a hands down head and shoulders win to the A2 Lite. Now I'm not going to throw up the benchmarks here, but again, if you want to see the raw performance numbers on either of these, feel free to check out the full reviews that I've done on either of these, which I'll have linked up down below in the video description, but it's pretty much what you're expecting. Newer chip definitely performs better, head and shoulders better than the older chip. Alright, now moving on. Now let's talk about one of my favorite and most important aspects when I look into devices and I make them my daily drivers. Let's talk about the battery life and the overall charge times. And woo! Boy, this was fun. Alright, when we talk about the overall battery life between these two devices, again, I want to reiterate before I talk about my results, and again, I won't have any screenshots for y'all, but if you want to see my independent results with all the screenshots and data, please feel free to check out the links to my full reviews, again, linked up down below in the video description. But that being said, both of these devices performed extremely well in regards to the overall battery life. I'm easily able to get through the day with either of these with my style of heavy usage. Now with light to moderate usage, I'm getting about 2 to 3 days with the E4 Plus, and I'm getting about 2 days with the A2 Lite, okay? And putting that into perspective for you guys and gals, with my style of usage, that means that I'm averaging anywhere from about 10 to 15 hours of screen on time on the E4 Plus, and on the A2 Lite, I'm averaging anywhere from about 7.5 hours of screen on time to just over 12 hours of screen on time with the A2 Lite. So regardless of whichever device you decide to pick up, in regards to the overall battery life, you should be good to go. That being said, I do have to give the W in battery life to the E4 Plus. It did a great job, and at no point was I ever concerned about running out of battery when I used the E4 Plus. And that's really, really exciting considering that I've owned this device for a very long time. Let me just pull up the health stats here so you guys and gals can see what I'm talking about. I've owned this device for a very long time, and the health of the battery has degraded significantly. So as you can see, I don't know how clear it is, but the health of the battery on the A2 Lite is down to 89%, whereas the health of the battery on the E4 Plus is down to 93%. So putting that into perspective in regards to the numbers for you guys, the A2 Lite is down to 3,557 milliamps, whereas the E4 Plus is down to 4,629 milliamps. So, I was very surprised because I did not baby this device at all, and I'm still pulling down some really good battery numbers. And I've owned this bad boy for a very long time. You can see the number of charge cycles that I put on it is just ridiculous. But it's really good to see that that battery is holding up very nicely. Now, talking about the overall charge times, this is where both of these devices don't really charge as fast as I would like, but there's a clear and noticeable difference between the two. Now, with my testing, I've noticed that charging up the A2 Lite is going to take anywhere from 1 hour and 50 minutes to 2.5 hours, whereas charging up the E4 Plus is going to take anywhere from about 3 to 3.5 hours, a little bit more if you're charging it from 0 to 100. Same can be said for the A2 Lite. So in regards to the overall charge times, both of these didn't do that great. But that being said, when we talk about the overall battery life and charge time, who wins what? Well, the E4 Plus does win the overall battery life category. The battery life on this device is just ridiculous. Ridiculous. whereas the A2 Lite does win in the overall charging category. 2.5 hours is not fast, but if you put that into perspective with the overall battery life that I'm getting, that still is pretty good. Pretty good indeed. So W for the charge times for the A2 Lite, W for the overall battery life on the E4 Plus. Now that brings us to the end of this video, and now I just want to talk about the overall price with you guys and gals. Now, the price between these two devices differ dramatically. Now, I actually picked up the E4 Plus. I can't remember what the original pricing was. I gotta go back and watch the old review. But it's available right now today anywhere from about $80 to $150. Okay? Whereas I actually picked up the A2 Lite for $205, and it's available right now today anywhere between $150 to at most $180. So there is a significant price difference between the two, and you really got to decide what you're going to get more usage out of, okay? If you're not a heavy user and you're just a casual user, you're gonna check your emails, you're gonna check your Instagram, social medias. The most intensive thing you might do is watch Netflix or Hulu, and you're gonna play the casual games like Subway Surfer and Fruit Ninja. Then I can still recommend that you pick up the E4 Plus. Even slightly more demanding, like photo editing, like video production, anything of that nature, or you need your devices because you run any type of mobile business and you're always on the go, then I would say spend the extra money and get the A2 Lite. You will not be disappointed. So depending on the type of user that you are and depending on your needs, both of these devices are, they have their strong points. But at least for me, okay, putting all that other stuff aside, I would have to say go with the A2 Lite, okay? You're going to get much more longevity out of the A2 Lite in regards to the hardware and the software, okay? That being said, if you can't stretch this price point to the A2 Lite, the E4 Plus is still a valuable option, okay? That being said, that pretty much does it for this video. I hope you guys and gals did enjoy this versus/comparison video. If you did, please help your boy out and give the video a thumbs up. That really does help me out. You don't know how much. If you want to see more content like this, also feel free to hit the subscribe button down below and click off the notification bell icon right next to it so you guys and gals get notified when I publish new videos. That being said, okay, if this video piqued you guys and gals' interest, all the links to everything that I talked about in this video, screen protectors, cases, devices and all, micro SD cards and all that stuff will be linked up down below in the video description. So not only will you find the best prices for these devices, but you'll also find some really good deals on screen protectors, micro SD cards and cases, linked up down below in the video description. So interest is piqued, down below in the video description will be like a one-stop shop for you guys and gals, and you should be good to go. Alright, that being said, this whole video was recorded using the rear-facing 12 megapixel camera on the Samsung Galaxy S8. So please let me know what you think of the overall video quality down below in the comments. That would be greatly appreciated. As well as all the audio you guys and gals are hearing for this video was recorded using the Comica V30 Lite shotgun style microphone. So please let me know also down below in the comments what you think of the overall audio on this video. Whew! This was fun, man. This was fun. It was a little bit of a struggle at times, but it's good to see how these older devices stack up to these newer devices. Alright, I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one. Have a good one, everybody. Peace.